like a lot of people, would tell me, oh yeah, you should start like doing a pop-up. And the thing is that it doesn't really work that way. And I knew what was required in terms of like investment to make it happen. And I was like, okay, listen, if I'm doing it like all the way. I'm not just gonna do pop-up on weekends. Like I rather focus my time and energy on like getting everything rather than doing something halfway. So I knew that I needed the cash. So it's when I decided to reach out to over like 350 investors on LinkedIn, just like cold emailing them. Because again, it's hard to raise money, but I think it's even harder when you don't have like an actual business, in the sense that the business was not open, it was not trading, not generating any like income whatsoever. So that was definitely like a numbers game when it comes to like finding investors.
Is there an art to that? Because I feel like we've had people on the show. I've had many conversations. Like, when were you doing this as well? Was this 2023?
24.
24. Harder time to raise as well, right? The market was a little bit all over the place, as it's been for the last 5 years. But like, not as good as 2020 and 21, where money was free, basically. Do you have some strong advice with your two sides of the experience, being family office, private equity, then going out and raising from angels? What is your best guidance you would give someone who's going down that route? Because I feel like a lot of people just go like, if I email 1,000 people, one will reply, or they'll go like very strong on the deal and maybe screw themselves over later down. There's so many things that go wrong at this point. What is your best guidance there?
I would say, first of all, don't message like, 100 or thousands of people, just like copy pasting the same like email and just hoping that one would reply.
Yeah.
When you're an investor, and I was doing like angel investment before.
Right.
So, I would have people like reaching out like every day. I would get like 10 messages of, hey, like I'm launching this business, whatever. And, it was not like personalized, or sometimes it was like the wrong name, or saying, oh, you're an expert in, technology. Like I'm not. So I think like I would really advise not to send like generic messages, which led me to like what I would advise doing is really craft some very, very personal like messages for investors. You need to understand like when you're asking money to someone, they won't like give it to you just like to be nice with you. The sense that, it's not to make you a favor. Like as an investor, your goal is to make money. So when you're approaching like an investor, you need to show them how they can make a return on their investment and why it's interesting for them specifically. Because obviously like investors are specialized in like different sectors. So I would say that's the biggest piece of advice. Like think about like what you're bringing to the table for this investor. Because a lot of people, are just like emailing or like messaging saying, oh, can I please get like, like 100K, you're an angel investor. Like I'm not, you know what I mean? Like it's not something you need to really spend the time. And that's something that, now again, like with Claude or ChatGPT, you can get
so much of it, right?
it's yeah, but now I think, like you can also like, of course it takes time to just like go through the profile, see what they have invested in and like what's the sector. But I think that now it's so much easier also to get like this background information on the investor that, you get things in bullet point and you just have to spend maybe like 15 or 10 minutes thinking, okay, like knowing this information on the specific investor, why would it make sense for them? And you just like write a message that, again, you can write it yourself and say, hey, you've invested in that investment. I'm launching something, in the same sector. So that's the way I would approach it. Being very kind of like specific and like take the time, because again, there is no shortcut to receiving investment. You need to put the work in.
What were some of the biggest doubts that the investors had outside of, I mean, you fixed one of them straight away with knowing the operational side, but the fact that you wanted a brick and mortar space, like were you always aiming to be in London to start with? I imagine so. So outside of that, was there any other big concerns from that?
I think the brick and mortar piece
Really?
is definitely, I would say maybe a blocking point for some investors, because obviously it's a very different type of business. It's not like you can scale, from like 0 to 100 million in 18 months, because it takes time to open like those physical locations. So I would say it's definitely one point that maybe, is kind of like a blocking point for investors. But again, I think I was lucky enough to find like my investors that also understand like the retail space.
Got it.
And so I don't have to educate them to explain saying, oh, retail is and brick and mortar is a bit of like a longer game than, investing in D2C where, we've seen companies like literally being sold for like $1 billion in, 3 years or 5 years,
Crazy, isn't
which is crazy. But I know it's not the route that I'm taking. And that's also something I'm very clear with my investors.
Do you think a red flag when bringing investors in is they've got the check and they want to invest the check, but they clearly don't understand the vision? Do you think that's a big red flag?
I would say so. And, I would also assume that if they don't get the vision, they would not invest in the first place. And that's always something, I've kind of like noticed, when I was doing like investor calls and like pitching the idea, if I had to explain to them the wellness market and explain to them that, it was a growing market, I knew 100% of the time that they would not invest.
Yeah.
But which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because, if you don't understand the market specifically or you don't have like a strong enough conviction on the wellness market, then it means it's not your type of investment. So that's definitely, that would be a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you managed to raise the funds. Step 2 is find a location.
Yes.
How was that? I mean, I know how it went. Tell me how it went.
Yeah, it was, again, it was a journey and nothing was kind of like easy. And
It was a journey. It's such an understatement.
And linear. Because, once you have the money, it's one thing because it gives you the kind of like ability to, put down an offer and just hope that you can pay the lease and go through. But the thing is like, London is a very competitive market. There are a lot of like amazing brands out there that are also scaling and looking for the same type of locations that we were looking at. So there's a lot of competition. And again, once you're in a business that essentially doesn't exist and you don't have like a proof of concept or something to show to the landlord, I don't blame them for deciding to go for, with a more established brand or like a more established like coffee chain. So it was, again, a lot of like back and forth. Honestly, I've stopped like counting the amount of locations that I've seen. There was one that I really liked that we didn't get. And, it's just like, it feels like you're kind of like wasting time. But
where did you want to be?
Initially, I wanted to open West. I wanted to be in like Chelsea or Notting Hill because I thought it's really where the kind of like wellness crowd is.
Yeah.
And I was very focused on that area, which is one of the most competitive market at the moment because everyone wants to be there.